Cape Cod Broadcasting weaves the listening environments of 99.9 WQRC, Ocean 104.7, WFCC Classical 107.5, Cape Country 104, and CapeCon.com's website experience to reflect the lifestyles of the people who live, work, and play on Cape Cod. We hope that you enjoy this podcast.
I'm Laura Reckford, and this is Sunday Journal. I'm here in the studio with best-selling author Nancy Thayer, who is joining us after traveling to the Cape from her home on Nantucket. Nancy, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Now, your latest book, and it's quite a page-turner, is The Guest Cottage. It has just come out. What's been the early reaction to this book?
I think a lot of people love it. I'm getting lots and lots of good reviews and lots of people emailing me saying they love it. So it's doing well, and I like it. I mean, it's one of my special books that I love.
Now, tell me about what makes it one of your special books, because you've done so many books over the years.
I like the couples in this because first there's a woman, but I also get to write from the point of view of a man. And not only is he a man, but he's a good guy. And it's really fun to have a good guy. And one of the things that he does is that he does the dishes. And I was at a talk somewhere and somebody says, you know, I could believe everything in your book except Trevor doing the dishes. And I just don't know any men who leave the kitchen clean. But I enjoyed Trevor because I know a lot of good guys, and they do the dishes. My son-in-law is one of them. So that doesn't sound like a page-turner sort of point, but it was part of it.
Well, two things on that. One is he not only does the dishes, he mops the floor. But,
I know.
But secondly, it's a trade-off, and many couples have this where the deal is that she does the cooking and he cleans, and I think you do have that in relationships, and I thought that was very fun. Now, when I read this book, I kept thinking that this is the perfect beach read, and you've done so many of these. Do you strive for that, and what do you think makes a good beach read?
In the past, I'd say 10 years, quotes, beach reads have become popular. That terminology is good. And I think it's really appropriate because people read them on the beach, but it also signals to the reader that this book, A, is going to have a happy ending. You know it's going to have a happy ending. If it's got a pretty woman on a beach and the sky is blue, this book is going to have a happy ending. You don't have to worry about some very terrible death or dismemberment or a pedophile. You know it's going to be a fun book. And I write all kinds of books, all of them novels, fiction, but I really like this because I love giving a happy ending.
Now, this book is set on Nantucket like so many of your books. Tell us about your attachment to the island. I know you've lived there for many years.
I have lived there for 30 years. I went over to visit a friend 32 years ago, and a man named Charlie Walters interviewed me on his television show called Arts View, and that was it. And we saw each other. We traveled back and forth. I lived in Williamstown. We got married 30 years ago. The island, honestly and truly, is a place where so many people meet and fall in love. I could name names of people. And I think part of it is that when you go to Nantucket, you're yourself. You're away from whatever your work demands of you, whatever your family, your mother, your father, all of that. And you can walk on the beach and you can think, this is who I want to be. And then you can think, life is really fabulous and I want to live it with this person.
So many people are living sort of their dream life on Nantucket, and I guess you're one of them. Now, what I found so interesting about this book is you set up the story, and not to give it away, but two strangers and their families renting the same house, and then we get to sort of live with them as they do these mundane things, and that becomes the bonding, if you will.
Yes. Renting a house on the summer in Nantucket is a very big and very expensive deal. And I actually had a friend last year who provided the idea for this book because she had rented a house. The owner of the house called her and said, I'm awfully sorry, but I forgot I promised my family this house, but I own another house, and it's quite a bit bigger, and it's more in town, and it's much fancier. It's much more expensive, but because I made the mistake, I will rent it to you for the same price as this little house. And I thought, okay, I've got to go write a novel. What if two people end up in the same house? Right there was the idea.
It could absolutely happen.
Yeah.
Of course, there are these big houses on the island, as we know. Now, one thing that struck me also, there is a lot of cooking and eating in this book. I always think of Nantucket as a wonderful place to have wonderful meals.
It is. You can always get, wonderful fish, the best fish. And now that we have many more people from different countries, we have much more food in the grocery store to buy, so we can make spicy hot Hispanic things, and we can make Eastern European moussaka and so on. It's a wonderful place to eat.
And that's a very interesting thing you've brought up, though, where you've been there for 30 years, and there has been not only, I think the census tells us about a doubling of population in that time, but a wide range of diversity of people who now live there year-round.
Right. Yes. I don't think we even know the numbers of how many people live there year-round, but I can tell you there are at least 500 Bulgarians who live on Nantucket and work on Nantucket. Some of them own homes. Some of them own businesses. And this has happened in the past 10, 15 years. It's quite different from the way it was 30 years ago, but it's so much better. It's so much richer. It's more lively and awakening.
It's really added to the character of the island. Now, getting back to the book, so these characters, they're both going through their own crises, but it's really a book about family, and children play a big role in this book.
Right. Yes. Well, Sophie has a teenage son who won't talk to her because he's a teenage boy, and I had a teenage boy who's now grown up, and now he'll talk to me. And then she has a 10-year-old daughter. And Trevor is widowed, and he has a 4-year-old son, Leo. And it really killed me to have to get rid of Leo's mother. That was really hard because I didn't want to hurt the little boy's feelings. So what I did was provide not the best mother in the world for any child.
And you're not really giving anything away, because this is sort of the setup is that this little boy loses his mother and Trevor loses his wife really in the first pages of the book.
Right.
That's really the setup. And as you said earlier, you sort of, there's going to be a happy ending here. You read it to see how this is all going to develop, which is a lot of fun. I'm Laura Reckford, and this is Sunday Journal. I'm talking with best-selling author Nancy Thayer. She has a new book out called The Guest Cottage. Now, we've been talking about how you set so many of your books on Nantucket. Do you ever give away your favorite things to do on Nantucket or favorite places to go in your books?
Oh, I do. Yes, absolutely. And I have a website, and I have a newsletter, and I love taking pictures of Nantucket. I post them on Facebook. I post them and send them out in my newsletter because it's really rich in there, especially, I was going to say nature, but also the history. The history is really still present in the town, in the cobblestones, in the brick buildings. And you get off the ferry, and the beach is right there. You can walk on the beach. You can walk down the wharves. There are shacks that used to be fishermen's shacks on the wharves, and they're now artists there and artisans. I talk a lot about Nantucket because I think it is so special.
And the reason I thought of asking that question is I noticed you put Steps Beach into this book, and I thought to myself, that's one of those beaches that not all the tourists know about. That's sort of a locals beach. So I was thinking she actually is giving away maybe some of her favorite places.
Yes, I do.
And now, what are some of your favorite things to do on the island?
Well, of course, I love going to the beach. But I like going in the winter. I love going in the fall, the winter, the spring. I love it when there's a storm. One of the weird things about people who live year-round on Nantucket is that we're just crazy. If there's a storm coming, a gale force wind, a hurricane, we're like, let's go to the beach. And it's exhilarating. And it's just a craziness that I guess maybe other islanders have. Last year I filmed a mother who came out to Cisco Beach. She had a little child who was about 2 years old. They were both barefoot, and they danced. The waves were crashing in, the wind was roaring, and their arms were up waving, and it was ecstasy. It was so. My favorite thing to do is to walk on the beach in the winter.
And we have a little bit of that on the Cape. You always have people going to the coast on the Cape when there is a big storm. And then, of course, we have our public safety officials who say, please don't go to the coast during the storm. But we do it anyway. So now, one thing I found this book to be very touching because you really fall into a routine with these characters and you care about them. And I'm wondering if you get a lot of reaction from your readers of people who are really relating to these characters.
Oh, I do. This is another reason I love technology so much, because I can get emails, I get posts on Facebooks, I'll get letters. Somebody sent me a box of chocolates. I mean, you can't get better than that. And one woman, for example, wrote to me and said, I'm so grateful you made Sophie's mother-in-law good and friendly and kind and warm and loving. She said, I'm a good mother-in-law, and I hate reading books where the mother-in-laws are mean, horrible women, because we're not all that way.
That's right. And it turns out that it's Sophie's mother who's a little bit of a problem, but she gets a bit of a happy ending, too, not to give anything away. Now, again, we've been talking about there's so much Nantucket in this book, and I was thinking that it's really almost a character in the book, and maybe it's part of what you said earlier about how people start to feel differently when they're on Nantucket because of what the island does to you.
Yes, I think especially in the summer, when people come over, they're coming over to be happy. It's quite different from checking into a hospital or going to a job in a big corporation or driving on the freeway. It's going to a place that is beautiful. You're going to be taken care of. You know the food is good. You know there are wonderful things to do. And you can take a big sigh of relief and enjoy yourself. And so many people do that. So many people are married on Nantucket now. Oh, it's so wonderful to see all the brides and grooms and the bridesmaids and it's just, you can't help but be happy.
A very romantic place.
Yes.
Now, I think, of course, you'll be doing a lot of different events having to do with this book, and you'll be at the Nantucket Book Festival coming up soon.
That is going to be awesome. They've really turned this into a wonderful festival. Scott Turow is going to be the major speaker, and Anita Diamond, who wrote The Boston Girl. There are a whole lot of other speakers. I think this is the 5th year, and I'm going to be interviewing a writer from Providence, Rhode Island, Ann Hood, about her book, and then I'm going to be talking about the Guest Cottage, too. So it's really packed with wonderful writers.
And a lot of free events at the Nantucket Book Festival, and just a great event. And then you have a number of other readings on the Cape, I think, coming up. Is that right?
I'm going to Titcomb's, which I love and adore, but that's in July. And then I'm going
That's in Sandwich, of course.
Yes. And then I'm going out to Chatham to where the sidewalk ends, to a luncheon that they always do. And that's in July.
So many great independent bookstores on the Cape, and bookstores of all types. Now, I'm wondering, are you already working on your next book, or does the publicity for this one take you for a while?
I'm already working on the next book. I'm well into it. My editor's seen the synopsis, and it's really hard to stop writing and come out and comb my hair and get out of my pajamas and be a grown-up adult. But I love this part of it, too. I'm going to be talking up in Wilmington on Thursday night at their library, and I love seeing the people that read my books.
Can you give us a little hint about the next book?
It's about a fabulously wealthy and interesting family and a girl from the Midwest who sort of is enchanted by them.
Very interesting. A nice little hint for those of us who love to read your books. And I want to ask also, because you have done so many books over the years, they haven't all been set on Nantucket, but many of them have. Do you find that you're writing over the years that is there an arc in terms of your interest in types of stories that you tell?
Types of stories.
There have been a number of love stories.
I think when I started writing, which was 30 years ago, someone said to me, my agent said to me, you can either be commercial or literary, and right now you're right on the line between the two, and you have to choose what you want to be. And I was a divorced woman with 2 little children, and I thought, well, I'd love to be literary, but I'd love to pay the mortgage. So I sort of toddled over, slightly tilted into the commercial side, and I love that side. And I've been writing, this is my 27th book. So it's such a pleasure that I'm almost afraid it's an addiction, an obsession.
It's really an extraordinary career going so far back and all the different books. I know you have many, many fans all over, but particularly on the Cape. And we have just a couple minutes left. I thought we should let people know where they can go to your website and perhaps sign up for your newsletter and see your social media sites.
Well, my website is simply Nancy Thayer. And if you go to that, you will see different sections on the menu about the Hot Flash Club books, which is a series and the only series that I've done, and a place to sign up for my newsletter. And I send my newsletter out about 4 times a year, maybe a little more depending on what's going on. And I think my email address, on my website it says, click here to email me.
I'm sure many of your readers love to get in touch with you through all of those different avenues. And unfortunately, we're out of time. I've been talking to best-selling author Nancy Thayer about her latest book, The Guest Cottage. Nancy, thank you so much for being here with me today. It's really been a pleasure.
Thank you, Laura.
I'm Laura Reckford, and this is Sunday Journal.
This podcast is a presentation of Cape Cod Broadcasting, which is solely responsible for its content. Thank you for listening. For more information, please visit us at capecodbroadcasting.com.